You know, there's just something mesmerizing about the mathematical precision of snooker, isn't there? I mean, that pristine expanse of green cloth, the multitude of colorful balls, and players in those classic waistcoats executing shots with just absolute geometric mastery. Well, today, in this explainer, we're going to look a little deeper. We're breaking down the underlying anatomy, the math, and the strategy behind the green bays that makes this incredibly challenging sport so endlessly fascinating. To get you up to speed, we're going to tackle this in 6 key parts. We'll start with the snooker table itself, move on to the balls and how the points work, and then look at how a frame is actually played. After that, we'll cover fouls and penalties, dive into the actual art of the snooker, and finally talk about how you actually win a match.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1. Welcome to the snooker table. And honestly, it really is a massive arena. The sheer geography of a snooker table dictates literally every single rule and strategy of this sport. It is a sprawling 12 feet long and 6 feet wide. Because it's so much bigger than that standard 8 or 9 foot American pool table you might be used to, the cue ball has to travel terrifying distances. I mean, it requires extreme accuracy. And adding to that intimidation factor, you've got 22 balls navigating curved pocket jaws. With American pool, the jaws are straight, but in snooker, if you don't hit the ball directly into the dead heart of the pocket, those curved jaws are going to mercilessly reject it.
Okay, moving right along to Section 2, the balls and the points. Let's meet our cast of characters.
Understanding these points is kind of like your decoder ring for watching the sport. Every single frame begins with exactly 22 balls on the table. The setup is totally iconic. You've got one white cue ball, 15 red balls tightly packed into a triangle rack, and 6 colored balls, yellow, green, brown, blue, pink, and black. And each of those colors gets placed on its own specifically designated spot marked right on the cloth.
So the mental gymnastics players go through entirely revolves around this specific point hierarchy. Every red is worth exactly 1 point. But the colors, they scale up. Yellow is 2, green is 3, brown is 4, blue is 5, pink is 6, and sitting right at the absolute top of the food chain is the black ball, worth 7 points. You can practically feel a player sweating over the table, agonizing over whether to take a safe, comfortable 5-point blue, or risk losing the entire frame to go for that extremely difficult 7-point black.
Which brings us to Section 3, how to play a frame. This is the real engine of snooker.
So a single game of snooker is called a frame, and it operates on this strict, almost hypnotic rhythm. It's a methodical engine where you have to alternate between reds and colors. First, you pot a red for 1 point, and that red stays off the table. Then you have to nominate and pot a color. The referee actually fishes that color right out of the pocket and places it back on its spot. Red, color, red, color. It's really like a dance, until all 15 reds are gone. Once the reds are clear, the player has to clear those remaining 6 colors in strictly ascending order, starting from the 2-point yellow and working all the way up to the 7-point black.
But, you know, things don't always go to plan. Let's look at Section 4, fouls, penalties, and mistakes.
Because let's be real, no one plays perfectly forever. When that beautiful rhythmic engine breaks down, the friction of the sport takes over, and the anxiety of making a mistake is just palpable. If the white cue ball falls into a pocket, what they call going in-off, it's a foul. But it's not just that. Imagine the sheer panic of your waistcoat accidentally brushing a red ball as you lean way over the table. Yep, that's a foul too. Missing the correct ball, playing an illegal push shot, or even striking the cue ball before all the other balls have completely stopped rolling will immediately stop you in your tracks and end your turn.
And a foul isn't just a lost turn. It's a painful, unforced error that actually gifts your opponent penalty points directly to their score. The minimum penalty is 4 points. But if your foul involves a higher value ball, like say you accidentally clipped that 7-point black when you were trying to hit a red, your opponent gets 7 points added straight to their score. In a tight frame, handing over 7 points without your opponent even picking up their cue, it is absolutely agonizing.
Oh, and it gets worse. If you completely miss your target, you might be called for a foul and a miss. This is pure psychological warfare. Your opponent can essentially hit the undo button and force you to try the difficult shot all over again. Just picture the utter despair of watching the referee meticulously reconstruct the table, placing the balls exactly where they were, just so you can take the penalty points and miss the exact same impossible escape a second time. Brutal, right?
That takes us perfectly into Section 5, the art of the snooker, where we look at defensive brilliance.
Because this is the tactical defense that actually gives the sport its namesake.
Snooker isn't just about potting balls. It's about setting devious traps and making your opponent's life miserable. If you intentionally, lightly tap the white cue ball so it hides snugly behind a colored ball, completely blocking your opponent's direct straight-line path to the ball they need to hit, you have snookered them. You force them to rely on complicated multi-cushion bank shots just to make a legal hit. So snooker is this beautiful, delicate balance of aggressive break building and deep, tension-filled safety exchanges. When a pot is just too risky, players don't just hit the ball and hope for the best. Instead, they play a safety shot, gently tucking the cue ball behind a color down at the bottom cushion. And then descends that hushed silence in the arena. Both players trade these defensive shots, nudging the cue ball mere millimeters at a time, locked in this intense game of physical chess, just waiting for the other person to blink.
But what happens if your opponent fouls and leaves you accidentally snookered? Well, you're rewarded with a super clever loophole called a free ball. This sudden strategic advantage completely flips the script. The referee announces free ball, which means you can point at literally any color on the table, and for that one single shot, it counts as a 1-point red. You pot it, score 1 point, and then shoot a normal color. It's a brilliant little rule to ensure a fouling player never accidentally benefits from their own mistake.
All right, our final section, part 6, winning the match. Let's talk formats and the ultimate pinnacle of the game. So, all these individual frames eventually add up to a victory across various match formats. Early tournament rounds might be a pretty quick sprint, like a best-of-5. But the World Championship final? Wow, that is a grueling best-of-35 frame marathon. It's spread out over 2 entire days of play, requiring a level of sheer mental stamina and focus that honestly leaves you completely in awe of the professionals.
And within those massive matches lies the absolute pinnacle of the sport, the 147 maximum break. It's basically a celebration of flawless, robotic perfection. It means potting all 15 reds with 15 blacks and then clearing all the colors perfectly. When a player is on track for a maximum, a heavy, absolute silence falls over the entire arena. It commands the respect of the whole sporting world.
Now, you might think 147 is the absolute mathematical ceiling, but I have a fascinating question for you. Could a player actually score a 155? Amazingly, the answer is yes. Thanks to that free ball rule we talked about earlier, a 155 break is technically, mathematically possible. If the very first shot of the game is a foul that leaves the player snookered on all the reds, they get a free ball. So, they can pot a color as an extra 16th red for 1 point, follow it with the black for 7 points, and then go on to make the standard 147 break. It's almost like uncovering a legendary Easter egg hidden deep within the official rulebook.
And speaking of the rulebook, these thrilling strategic battles and incredibly intricate rules are all carefully standardized and managed globally by the World Professional Billiards and Snooker Association, along with the World Snooker Tour. Whether a match is being played in London, Shanghai, or Berlin, that agonizing 12-foot table, the 22 balls, and those unforgiving free ball rules remain absolutely identical. It connects every single player around the world to the exact same rigorous standard.
So, having decoded the massive table, the strict rules, and the beautiful strategy in this explainer, you really start to see how snooker demands the aggressive perfection of a maximum break combined with the deep, defensive trap setting of a safety exchange. The next time you sit down to watch a match, you have to ask yourself, is snooker truly just a game of physical geometry, or is it actually a brutal, exhausting test of psychological endurance?